Tonight at 6, a seemingly never-ending back and forth over a Texas immigration law. We'll bring you the latest on its legal status and an update on the Texas wildfires. We'll have the details.
Plus, TCC Board of Trustees are set to meet tomorrow. What they plan to address coming up.
Thanks for joining us on the Newsfeed at 6. I'm Isabel Price.
And I'm John Patterson. We will get you those stories in just a moment, but it's officially spring.
And isn't that exciting?
Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts.
All right. I know I'm incredibly thankful for that extra time we received with that new season, including down in Dallas, an extra 2 hours and 10 minutes. Atlanta, you're looking at an extra 2 hours and 15 minutes. Currently, we're sitting at 68 degrees, pretty comfortable. Cloudy skies, that 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. That's nothing too extreme. However, that is going to be pushing them in that precipitation we'll see later tomorrow. Looking across the Metroplex, you'll see pretty temperate temperatures. Fort Worth 68, 69 in Dallas. Out west, Abilene 71, Seymour 72. As we progress into the evening, those temperatures are going to stay in the mid 60s, clouds throughout, 67 at 8, 65 at 9, a little chillier at 64 at 10. Coming up, we're going to look at the next 3 days, including that rain we can expect tomorrow, followed by that 7-day forecast with the Newsfeed at 6. Back to you, Izzy and John.
All right, thank you, Lauren. We're following the breaking news where in a late night decision, a federal appeals court put Texas' controversial immigration law back on hold. This just hours after the U.S. Supreme Court cleared the way for state officials to begin enforcing the law known as SB 4. That measure would allow authorities to arrest and detain people they suspect of entering the state illegally.
Tuesday night, in a brief order, a 3-judge panel at the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals voted 2-1 to wipe away a previous ruling. Critics say SB 4 could create racial profiling problems in a state where 40% of the population is Latino.
And there was some notable back and forth on social media yesterday between Texas House Speaker Dade Phelan and the Fort Worth Police Department. It started after a Fort Worth video posted a video of the chief, Neil Noakes, explaining how the department plans to respond to the new law.
It is the mission of the Fort Worth Police Department to serve every member of our community. And our day-to-day commitment to that mission will not change with the passage of Senate Bill 4. Although we will always follow the law, the primary responsibility for immigration enforcement and border protection should be left to our federal and state partners.
What you saw there was the part of the department's full response on Monday, just before the Supreme Court announced it would be extending the stay on SB 4. In the video and in the caption to the video, Fort Worth PD reiterated that it will continue to follow the law, their words.
House Speaker Dade Phelan responded to the video online saying in part, quote, "Unbelievable. Compliance with state law is not optional, it is mandatory. Any local law enforcement agency that refuses to enforce SB 4 is abandoning their sworn duty to uphold the rule of law," end quote. Now, that same federal court appeals heard arguments this morning on whether to allow Texas to temporarily enforce SB 4, and the court decided to keep the law on hold. We will continue to keep you updated tonight as we receive new details. Happening tomorrow, TCC's Board of Trustees will have their first public meeting following spring break. The board will consider and approve a variety of topics, most notably of a contract amendment aimed at providing childcare services for students. TCC currently has a contract with Learning Group Care Incorporated, which is set to expire in August. The board will also discuss 2025 student fees, faculty development leave for the 2024-2025 academic year, and new equipment for the Trinity River Microbiology Lab. The public can and are encouraged to sign up for public comment to the board. The meeting will begin at 6 p.m. tomorrow at the Trinity River campus. Happening today, President Biden is shifting focus to North Texas. He landed at DFW Airport about an hour ago, the first time the president has landed there since 2014. The president is expected to attend a private fundraising event following his primary wins last night. His visit is expected to cause traffic delays, so keep that in mind driving home to work or to class tonight.
Now to an update on the largest wildfire in the state of Texas' recorded history. According to the Texas A&M Forest Service, the Smokehouse Creek fire in the Panhandle is finally fully contained. More than 1 million acres burned. At least 2 people and thousands of livestock died. Officials say power lines sparked the Smokehouse Creek and Windy Deuce fires. Xcel Energy acknowledged its equipment might have played a role in the disaster, but denies any negligence.
Police are searching for a gunman who opened fire over the weekend on West 7th Street in Fort Worth. One man was hit following an altercation, and he is still in the hospital fighting for his life. Investigators say the man was arguing with his girlfriend when another man stepped in and shot him. The gunman fled the scene, but security camera video could help investigators make a break in the case. This is actually the third shooting in the West 7th area in the last 6 months.
A tragic story out of Texas. Police say a toddler died after a rideshare driver accidentally drove over her. The driver was then attacked. Giovanni Alleghi has the details.
In less than 30 seconds,
it's a moment frozen in time.
I grabbed my phone, and I dialed 911.
a family lost a child.
She used to play outside on her little bike.
A toddler run over by a rideshare driver. Those moments.
Hysteria, people running everywhere.
Deputies tell us the driver was bringing the family home. They all get out of the car.
The driver just pulled out. He thought the path was clear. The rest exited.
One of the kids, a 1.5-year-old girl, walked in front of the car. The driver moved forward and ran her over.
His level of sight was probably a little bit higher than the small toddler. And unfortunately, as he was going forward, just struck her with enough impact that dropped her into the vehicle and then dragged her for a bit.
Gonzalez shows me what happened and said people pulled the driver out and then started assaulting him.
It seemed like everyone started beating the male. I wish somebody would have contacted 911 immediately. There seemed to have been a delay in calling 911.
This witness, who doesn't want to be named, jumps in, picks up the child, and rushes them to flag down first responders.
Everybody was screaming, so I instantly went and grabbed my keys, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's just go to the hospital.
But the 1.5-year-old didn't make it and died at the hospital. This father of two.
My mind went. It went directly to them, so I felt sorry.
The rideshare driver was taken to the hospital with injuries, but he's expected to be okay. Investigators are working to determine whether charges will be filed against anyone involved in the incident.
Coming up next, a family is mourning the loss of a Dallas man who made history and made them smile. We'll have that plus your national headlines coming up next.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Mom was always very self-sufficient, but we started noticing things were off.
I was forgetting my responsibilities at work.
I told Mom we should visit a doctor.
Alzheimer's. It was hard to hear that.
Early detection gave us time to seek information and support as a family. I've never felt more connected with Mom.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me.
That was perfect.
But I heard every word.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Today, family and friends gathered to remember the Dallas man with the iron lung. 78-year-old Paul Alexander passed a week ago today. Alexander lived in an iron lung for more than 70 years. He contracted polio when he was 6 years old and became paralyzed by the virus. Alexander was the longest living patient in history. The U.S. Federal Reserve Board concluded its two-day policy meeting today, leaving interest rates the same as the central bank continues its bitter battle against inflation. But the end to higher prices and higher interest rates may finally be in sight. Ivan Rodriguez takes a look at the road ahead and what it means for your wallet.
The Fed's decision will hold interest rates at 5.25% for the fifth time. Officials are balancing the risk of cutting too soon with the risk of cutting too fast. Both of those decisions come with consequences. Amid back-to-back months of hotter than expected inflation data, the U.S. Federal Reserve announcing Wednesday it will continue to hold its benchmark interest rate steady.
Inflation has eased substantially while the labor market has remained strong, and that is very good news. But inflation is still too high, ongoing progress in bringing it down is not assured, and the path forward is uncertain.
With interest rates sitting at a 23-year high, the relief many market watchers and consumers had been hoping for isn't here yet, but neither is the recession that many feared. Mark Zandi of Moody's Analytics says the U.S. economy is proving to be stronger and more resilient than expected, thanks in part to the record low mortgage rates during the pandemic.
Back in the teeth of the pandemic, you could get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 2.5%, 3%, and people refinance down into that. So they're not experiencing higher debt payments because they locked in those previously low rates.
Yet, despite the economy's strengths and robust household balance sheets, people are still facing some headwinds, namely high credit card balances and surging gas prices.
Nothing hurts more quickly, more painfully than higher gas prices. If they move up much more from here, it's going to start to do some real damage.
But as the Fed steadily succeeds in its battle against inflation, the price pressure on consumers is easing, and interest rates may finally start coming down this summer.
I think everyone's going to feel a bit better with each passing month, and by the end of the year, by this time next year, I think people will feel a lot more comfortable.
Investors weren't surprised by the Fed's decision. Markets have long priced in no rate cut for the March meeting. The soonest that analysts predict a rate cut would be either June or July. The Fed still expects to cut the rates 3 times this year. In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Thank you so much, Ivan.
Now to some national headlines. Many voters will have a tough decision on Election Day. That's because a new poll found they don't really like either party's presidential candidate. A recently released Pew Center research poll found that a quarter of American public holds negative views of both Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Younger Americans are more likely than their older counterparts to fall into the double negative category. 37% of Americans who don't identify as either Republicans or Democrats don't like either candidate. A scant 2% reports favorable reviews of both Biden and Trump. Over the past few months, former President Donald Trump has racked up endorsements from high-ranking members of the GOP and some former primary opponents. But there are several big names who say they don't plan to support the presumptive Republican nominee. Washington correspondent Julia Benbrook has the details.
Several of Donald Trump's primary opponents started campaigning for the former president quickly after they suspended their own campaigns, including businessman Vivek Ramaswamy and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
I just love you.
But not all of Trump's former opponents are falling in line. In an interview with Fox News, former Vice President Mike Pence said he cannot endorse the president he once served with.
Donald Trump is pursuing and articulating an agenda that is at odds with the conservative agenda that we governed on during our 4 years.
In a USA Today op-ed, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson made his stance clear, writing, quote, "I have not endorsed Donald Trump for president, and I will not do so." Hutchinson, who was critical of Trump on the presidential campaign trail, wrote, "Regretfully, Donald Trump has redefined the GOP in his image and has put personal ego above the common good."
8 Republican candidates have qualified and have chosen to be here.
In order to get on the debate stage last year, the Republican candidates signed an RNC pledge promising to support the eventual nominee. Trump's former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, has not made an official announcement of support, but has suggested she's no longer bound by that pledge.
I think I'll make what decision I want to make.
Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Abortion rates in the U.S. have skyrocketed despite restrictive laws. We'll have more on how women are seeking treatment next.
I don't remember how it started.
North of that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver. And we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Mom was always very self-sufficient, but we started noticing things were off.
I was forgetting my responsibilities at work.
I told Mom we should visit a doctor.
Alzheimer's. It was hard to hear that.
Early detection gave us time to seek information and support as a family. I've never felt more connected with Mom.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
The Guttmacher Institute has released new data from its monthly abortion provision study. According to the report, abortions in the United States have reached their highest level in more than a decade. Last year, there were more than 1 million abortions in the U.S. The findings come despite abortion bans in more than a dozen states, including right here in Texas. Since the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in 2022, according to an analysis by the Research and Policy Organization, nearly 1 in 5 patients are now traveling out of state for abortion care, and that non-surgical abortions are becoming a more common choice. It's the most common disabling neurological disease in young adults, according to the National Institute of Health. Symptoms of multiple sclerosis, or MS, typically start between the ages of 20 and 40, but the disease affects people differently and can worsen over time. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has more on new research into MS and aging, and how some hope it helps improve the quality of life for these patients.
It's a disease where the body's immune system attacks the central nervous system. Multiple sclerosis inflames the brain, spinal cord, and optic nerves.
The prevalence has been increasing over the past decade for unclear reasons.
Neurologist Dr. Benjamin Segal with Ohio State's Wexner Medical Center says MS symptoms can start in episodes that resolve when a patient is younger, but over time, more attacks can happen. The progressive form of the disease can lead to lasting decline in neurological disability. Symptoms of attacks include balance problems, muscle weakness, problems with cognition, paralysis, and tremors.
As healthcare professionals, we try to alter the course of the disease to decrease attacks and ultimately delay the progressive transition into this relentless decline.
The researchers say biological age, which measures lifelong damage to cells and organs, can be more important than chronological age, which is simply the number of years a person has lived in determining the form and severity of MS.
What we're finding is that biological age, as indicated by these tests, really is strongly associated with degree of disability in multiple sclerosis, whether you're in that progressive phase of disease, how much functional reserve that you have.
Segal says researchers are studying how to slow down or reverse biological aging to better care for patients with MS and improve quality of life. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
As some of you know, we are expected to get a great view of the total solar eclipse April 8th, and Sonic wants to help you celebrate. DFW is in a prime path of totality. The fast food restaurant is launching a limited edition drink called the Blackout Slush Float. It's a black color that celebrates darkness from the eclipse. But what does this celestial event taste like?
Well, it's described as cotton candy and dragon fruit. The beverage is topped with white soft serve and blue and purple galaxy-themed sprinkles. And those of us who buy one get a free pair of eclipse glasses to safely watch it on April 8th. The Blackout Slush Float will be available March 25th to May 5th at participating Sonic locations. So are you going to get one?
Well, I don't know. That sounds like a lot of food coloring.
Well, we'll have Lauren here with the actual eclipse. Lauren?
I know thousands across the nation are looking for that solar eclipse. They're coming into the area. Right now, it's a very comfortable 68 degrees, cloudy skies, 10 to 15 mile per hour winds. That's going to be, again, blowing in those storms that we can see tomorrow. Looking across the Metroplex, you'll see 68 in Fort Worth, 69 in Dallas. Out west, Seymour, a little bit warmer at 72. Going into the evening, those clouds are not going to let up. 67 at 8, 65 at 9, 64 at 10 p.m. As we look across northeast Texas, you'll see those clouds start to condense. Up in Wichita Falls, those are going to be the first to meet that precipitation around 2 or 3 a.m. before it continues to move east. As it continues to move, it's going to pick up in intensity. You'll see Bowie, Gainesville, that may hit some rain early tomorrow afternoon. Mineral Wells, you are going to be hitting the hardest of that precipitation around 6 p.m. before it continues to move into the DFW area around 9. Now tomorrow, 62 degrees, a little bit cooler than what we've seen. It's going to be cooler than the following days as well, that 70% chance storms. That's going to be bringing that temperature down. Friday, 71, Saturday, 72. We may see some sun, but it's going to be pretty heavy in that cloud cover. High 60s, low 70s the next few days. Now, Izzy and John, Monday, we may see more precipitation, 60%. That may follow into Tuesday and Wednesday as well. A little bit lighter at a 30% chance.
All right, more rain, love it. Thank you, Lauren. Next at 6, senators on Capitol Hill are looking into the 4-day work week, how that could affect the economy, plus YouTube cracks down on AI.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver. And we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Taking a look at your consumer feed, there's a push to shorten the standard U.S. work week from 40 to 32 hours. A bill was recently proposed in the Senate aiming to make that a reality. The UK even tested the idea and found it to be highly successful. But some critics worry a 4-day work week could hurt businesses. Jen Sullivan takes a look at the pros and cons.
How does a 4-day work week sound? Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders wants to make that a reality, proposing a bill that would cut the work week down to 32 hours without reduced pay.
The sad reality is Americans now work more hours than the people of any other wealthy nation.
In many European countries, employees have shorter work weeks. France has a federally mandated 35-hour work week. Denmark has a 37-hour work week. Belgium has adopted a 4-day work week. And the UK recently tested the idea. 61 companies did a trial run of the 4-day work week between June and December of 2022. The director of the 4-day week campaign talked about the results last fall.
It was overwhelmingly successful.
Nearly 90% of the businesses that participated in the pilot were still operating with the 4-day work week 1 year later. 31 of those companies have made the change permanent.
When workers have that 4-day week, 32 hours, no loss of pay, they come back into the workplace working much more effectively, efficiently, they're better rested, also more creative.
The program also found revenue remained the same during the trial, and in some cases even ticked up slightly. Critics, though, worry it could hurt employers and employees in the future.
They would ship those jobs overseas, or they would automate to replace those workers for whom they have an increased expense, or they would dramatically increase prices to make this stay afloat.
Some unions support the bill, but it's unlikely to pass in the Senate. For Consumer Watch, I'm Jen Sullivan.
Thank you so much, Jen. YouTube will now require content creators to label videos that were made using artificial intelligence. It's a part of the company's efforts to be more transparent about content that could confuse or mislead users. Now, creators will see a checklist when they upload content that appears realistic. It will ask if the video makes a person say or do something they didn't do, alters footage of a real place or event, or depicts a scene that didn't actually occur. This comes as online safety experts have raised alarms that AI-generated content could confuse and mislead users across the web. Creators could face consequences if they repeatedly fail to add the disclosure. You're watching the NewsFeed at 6, and we'll be right back.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
What are you doing in there? What's that?
I wouldn't do that. What are you doing? What are you looking for?
Mom was always very self-sufficient, but we started noticing things were off.
I was forgetting my responsibilities at work.
I told Mom we should visit a doctor.
Alzheimer's. It was hard to hear that.
Early detection gave us time to seek information and support as a family. I've never felt more connected with Mom.
If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
Tonight's Powerball jackpot is $687 million. It rose after there was no winner in Monday night's drawing. The last winner was on January 1st.
Since then, there have been 33 drawings in a row without a jackpot winner. If somebody wins Wednesday's drawing, they could get the $687 million over 30 annual payments, or take a lump sum payment of about $327 million. Meanwhile, Friday night's Mega Millions jackpot is $977 million. Wow.
That is a lot of money.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you for joining us at the NewsFeed at 6.
Have a great week and great news, and we'll see you all back here Friday at noon.